So there's a bunch that were stated, but the first one that we were just talking about right now was that the chart that was posted, the Maisie data one, was sufficient to come to the conclusion that there has not been um, a reduction in the sea ice Arctic sea ice extent over the past 19 years.
Okay, so the proposition is not about like global warming or something. It's
Well,
about
there's further propositions. We just haven't gotten past the first one.
I'm willing to extend the conversation generally to like global warming.
Right, but
But
we're on point by point.
No, that's fair. Because if it was about global warming, I would be like, wait, this should like all this shit should take like a backseat to like something like average surface temperature or something like that.
No,
well, not exactly. There's a reason why I specifically chose like Arctic ice data compared to surface temperature, and the reason why is ice data is much harder to manipulate or alter, where temperature data is it's altered many times. The temperature data we see, it's usually adjusted like 4 or 5 times. Um,
What's the wait? Why is that an issue?
Wait, so before you guys go off, I'm
Yeah.
happy to have you guys have that discussion while
Yeah,
I'm doing
yeah,
the data analysis. I just want to know if the room and if Squarepusher is okay with that, so that it's like not a dog pile, is all. Because I'm happy to let you guys do that discussion, and then I'll do the data analysis in the background.
I was just filling the time. I was just filling the time, and
I get that. I just don't want Squarepusher to feel dogpiled because they already complained about like being ganged up by mods or something. So
I
Squarepusher's okay with having that discussion, then I'll like stream myself doing the spreadsheet, and you guys can do that discussion while I
yeah. Well, let's Squarepusher answer, and then I'll shut up or I'll talk.
Okay, so the reason why I usually choose sea ice data is because
Wait, can you answer his question?
which question?
Are you comfortable with talking to me?
Oh,
This?
yeah. That's fine.
Okay. So so when I evaluate adjustments, like adjustments aren't necessarily a good thing or bad thing. You can over adjust or you can under adjust. No adjustment is oftentimes an under adjustment. But when you're trying to do a causal inference work, generally speaking, no adjustments are actually a very bad thing. This is not to say that any and all adjustments are a good thing, but maybe something in this field is different. But no adjustments are usually like a good, reliable way of getting the wrong answer. At least from the fields that I've been exposed to.
Yeah, I understand that adjustments are like required in a lot of fields. Um, so this almost gets into like a much deeper subject that probably we don't have time for. But one of the claims of global warming in question that I believe um, is that this controlling of the narrative of temperature data is actually quite easy to manipulate, and they've actually historically gone back and revised historical data from even 100 years ago. Um, you can look that up, but
Wait, the question wouldn't be that. I mean, that's fine. Even if it's granted, it's not clear to me why we would not go with that data. You would have to show that the revisions are in some way getting further from the truth instead of closer to the truth. The
right,
revisions, all those revisions could be very good things, and not doing those revisions could just be like, well, we're being untruthful. We actually there could be a whole huge fuck up, and like we should revise.
well, yeah, that's why I brought up this concept of sea ice in the beginning, because what everyone's been hearing in the media is it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter, hottest days, hottest ever. This is what like the media is just like blasting into everyone's brains, right? So then like
Well, when they say hottest days, they're talking about hottest average temperature. They're not talking about the hottest time in like the most energy toward the sea ice necessarily.
I mean,
Like you can have a hotter average temperature with less energy toward the sea ice. I mean, you can have an expansion of the sea ice with an increase in average uh, global temperature.
yeah, I don't think that's really straightforward for most people, because most people just would
Okay,
just say,
it's true, right? We agree that's true.
"H- how can it get warmer and you can have increasing ice? I don't understand that.
Because so just to be clear, what was claimed was you can have an increase in the average temperature, average surface temperature, while having an increase in the sea ice. And that's because the average is just that. It's an average. It's your temperature over a whole bunch of areas that are not sea ice. And so you can actually get colder areas at the sea ice due to all sorts of variables in the climate, while having more than making up for that in an increase in temperature in areas that are not sea ice.
Right.
So you can
I understand that may be possible. More of kind of like an
not just
instantaneous.
wait, it's not just possible; it happens.
Yeah. So that can kind of happen on kind of like a spot level, or like even if it's the hottest day somewhere, it may be cold somewhere else. That's why I kind of brought up, this 19-year history, because when we're talking like a 19-year trend, then it's not like we get a much better view of kind of what's going on. And Bryn is actually correct that there has been a decline from 1980 to early 2000s. So there has been a decline in Arctic sea
I'm
ice.
not sure how much. Look, I'm not sure how much 19 years is going to do, depending on like what, like there's all sorts of like climate cycles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just not sure why. Again, it's just I'm not sure why any of this is going to be, with no
Well,
adjustment. Any of this is going to be better than doing the adjustment, or it
oh,
is. Yeah,
okay.
adjusting for relevant variables for the actual thing you're trying to measure.
So about temperature data. So the temperature data in specific, I think the climate skeptics' main problem with that is not that they're like, kind of modifying like a temperature data station somewhere. It's that they're going back 100 years and changing historical data to better
Wait,
meet their.
when you say changing historical data, what do you mean?
I mean, we have temperature data records.
No, I know we have temperature data records. That's not answering my question. My question wasn't, do we have temperature data records? So my question was, when you say they're changing historical data sets, they're changing historical data, what does that mean? Does that mean that they're going in and just making up numbers? Does that mean that they're saying, oh, there's a variable we forgot to adjust for, let's adjust for that 100 years ago? What are we talking about?
I mean, yeah, that's what they're saying. Yeah.
Wait, the latter or the former?
The latter, that they're going back and
Oh,
they're saying,
that could be well, again, same objection. That could be a good thing. You have to make the case that that's a bad thing, that you're getting further from the truth instead of closer to the truth. Like could be, look, we can do this in any other scientific field. We can go through 100-year-old study in nutrition and be like, oh, well, this study just didn't adjust for this, and it's
no,
really stupid they didn't.
one of the basics of the scientific method is you make predictions, then you take observations, and if
You
there's.
don't let it. No. You don't have to explain the scientific method.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying in the
I
case
don't
of
see how that interacts with what I just said.
in the case of climate change, it's very, very, very questionable. It's almost turning science on its head, because essentially what they're
We're
saying
not
is,
talking about. Look, we're not
let me
even
finish.
talking.
Let me finish, please.
We're not even talking about a theory right now. We're just talking about an observation. Look, are we observing? Like, I don't even know why you're bringing up the scientific method as it pertains to hypotheses and theories. We're not talking about either of those.
Well, climate
We're
change
talking
is supposed to be a scientific hypothesis.
Wait, I know, I understand it's supposed to be attributable to something. That's a theory, that's a hypothesis, but that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about right now is just whether it's going up or down. That's an observation, not a hypothesis.
Whether the temperature is going up or down.
Yes. And so if
Tell
there's some
me,
adjustment, and if there's some adjustment, really, if that is incorrect, that like, okay, well, really, it was going up and we missed it because we didn't account for something. Um, yeah, like you could take your model of just getting data or imputing data and giving an answer without doing any explanatory work of saying why it's that way, just to get like the act. Just it's like, look, it's just like you have a machine that makes some observation, like you observe some wavelength of light or something. But if it turns out that there's it could be 100-year-old machine, it doesn't matter if there's something off about the machine. You can make it, and you found out the 100-year-old data for that machine was off. Like there's an adjustment you can make to get the right answer. Then why not make the fucking adjustment? And all these comments about, well, the scientific method, that's just all irrelevant.
well, it's related. I mean, theoretically, you are correct, but you
Well,
have to
that's
be.
what needs to be shown. What you need to do is the point is that you can't just say like, hey, they made an adjustment, so therefore bad. Like, no, it
I
could be
think
they made an adjustment, therefore good.
I can show you that historically they've cooled temperature data in the past, and they've warmed current present day temperature.
That's
I
again, that doesn't matter. Okay. I could grant all of that. I don't think you're following what I'm saying. Like you can
but
show
you're
all of
saying
that.
it's valid. It could be for
You
valid reasons, right?
no, to be specific, what I'm saying is that could decrease bias, meaning the discrepancy between your estimation and the true value, or it could increase bias, and you're trying, and it's not clear that it's increasing that rather than decreasing that. The point
I
is,
understand.
yeah. So
I just think
in that case, you can't just say we're using this because there's no adjustment. You got to say you got this, so therefore it's better. No, it's not clear that that's better. It could be way worse. You got
okay,
to make yeah.
I'll grant you that, but I just want for everyone in the room to know that whether it's more accurate or less accurate, it did happen. So historical temperature data has been altered.
We don't disagree. Hasn't been. Wait, when you say altered, it just means there's an adjustment that they didn't go
Yeah.
in and they like put numbers in or something. That they made up numbers or some shit like that.
Well,
That's not what. Or are you saying that? You're saying they just fabricated numbers? No, you're saying presumably you're saying there was some adjustment that they made for some variable that they didn't take into account before, or something like that.
something like that. I guess
Yeah.
my trouble is it like if you have data from the 1930s, then you all of a sudden say, hey, 100 years ago this thermometer was probably inaccurate. I'm gonna like change the data. It's kind
Well,
of hard to prove that.
it depends. If you know why it was inaccurate and to what degree there was that changes the accuracy, then yes, you should change it by the same factor. And any claims that you shouldn't seem kind of silly.
I just think it's important that that people know that it did happen, whether it's like
We
valid or
agree.
not.
We agree it happened. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
But
not seeing a reason to dispute the claim. I mean, I
no,
haven't.
but most people, if I tell them, hey, NASA like went back historically and they like cooled the 1930s, most people say no, that didn't happen.
They adjust. To be clear, like when you use that language, there's a connotation you're giving. Like they cooled it, meaning the connotation is that they wanted this result, and so they did it to get that
Yeah,
result.
and I
The
think that's the case.
wait, but you haven't shown that. Like what you can
I haven't.
what you actually can defend here is you can defend the position minimally you can defend is that they made an adjustment for something and that resulted in a cooler temperature or a warmer temperature.
Yes.
Yeah, but when
Yes.
you make the further thing, when you say, "Oh, NASA cooled it," you're giving a connotation of a claim you
Yeah.
can't. You're not defending. Or at least you're not successfully defending.
I don't know if I could 100% prove like
I'm not asking 100% prove it. I'm asking to make any case for any real case for it that with any good evidence at all. Like instead of just your speculation.
I'm done with the analysis whenever
Okay,
you're.
I'll shut up now. Okay.
Okay, so having done the analysis on the most recent data from the sea ice index, we actually get a negative trend line. So I've posted the chart with the link to where I got the data. So if you'd like to replicate it, you're more than welcome. I can even invite you to the Google Sheet. But yeah, if you don't do red squiggly lines, you actually do get a negative trend line since January 2005 to now.
one. Hold on, let me pull up a tool real quick. I mean, I'm not really sure that you're kind of proving the point that you want, though, Brent.
Well, the point that I was proving was that if we use the data set that NASA suggests using instead of the data set that you use, that there was a negative trend in the sea ice extent. You said, well, no, because if I draw this red line on the chart that you posted, it's actually a positive. And I said, well, instead of doing the red squiggly line, let's actually do the data analysis. So I went and downloaded the data set. I've linked to the data set that I downloaded. And then if we put that into a data processor and we actually determine the trend line is negative. So just to be clear, if we use the data set that NASA suggests using for long-term analysis, we actually do get a decrease in the sea ice extent over the past 19 years.
I mean, depending on your, I
Well,
mean,
this is just the more rigorous version of the red line that you did earlier. Like that's the only claim that's being made. Is that when we actually do what you did earlier with the red squiggly line that you drew, we actually do get a negative.
It's just it's a statistically acceptable version of the methodology.
Yeah, like the version that won't get you kicked out of your climate science class.
oh, I would care less about getting kicked out of your climate science class. They
or
listen,
any statistics class, really.
No, Avi, don't say
Hey.
that. You can definitely do some red squiggly lines in sociology, okay?
I'm not talking about splines, okay? Those weren't splines. Don't give me.
No. I'm saying you can do what Squarepusher did in sociology.
Squishy out.
Okay, I'm making a joke. Okay,
Sociology.
go on, Square. Sorry. I don't want to make jokes while I'm trying to have a serious debate. What
Okay.
was your actual response?
That's only if you're a Palestinian scholar.
Okay.
Okay, so here's my actual response. Like, so if you look at, I took your screenshot, right? And I'm just focusing on the peaks only, which is like the maximum extent. I'm getting from, I don't know exactly what year that is, maybe 2006 to last year, 2002, 2003 ice peak. I'm getting it's like relatively the same. So the ice extent from, not exactly sure that year if it's 2006, and it's
Sorry,
pretty
do you want me
fairly.
to, Avi? Do you want to restart while I do the analysis on the
I
maximum
mean,
of each year?
this is just
Like,
this is just a horizontal
like
line.
I'll go do the maximum. Okay, 1 second. I'll
No,
mute
I
up
mean,
again. I'll do the maximums. Avi, continue whatever discussion you were having. We'll
Sure.
actually do the maximums, and then we'll come back. 1
Bro,
second.
what the fuck is this shit, Squarepusher? Like,
it's
why were you doing the maximums?
wait, because that's the extent.
No, the
That's the
maximum.
maximum extent.
The maximums are a useful metric, but the original claims and the original data that was posted was on the yearly averages. But so I'll go do the yearly maximums. I'll
But
even do the yearly minimums while we're at it, and
why
then
why is that a more useful metric to the debate proposition?
Wait,
well,
so
I can still then say that there actually is some reason to think CI's maximums are interesting.
Not
But
that
of course they're
but
interesting.
you're right that the proposition itself is not about maximums. It was about sea ice extent.
Listen, you're so I think you guys are really missing the forest for the trees here. Um, so
Wait, by missing the forest for the trees, do you just mean trying to find what is the best predictive of to answer the question about the actual debate proposition and not some non-debate proposition? Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, I'm discussing climate change. So
Okay,
if
climate
you
change is not a debate proposition. Sorry, I thought you guys were having a debate about it, and I take that to be there's a debate proposition that you're going to have. Like, I don't take
well,
a down debate.
oh my
Yeah,
God.
no,
Okay,
there is a debate proposition here.
Okay,
I don't want Squarepusher to. So I'll 1 second. 1 second, because I think at this point a lot of people have
you
missed.
guys are like railroading here.
Because
Let's be honest.
because I'm just not here. Look, if I'm just not in this conversation to like talk about noun debates or like random careening
So
shit.
here's what I'm showing. If you guys will let me speak.
Okay,
So
fair.
most people,
This Avi, this is
oh,
the message that I took issue with. And then what
hey,
we are
just let
currently
me speak,
what we are
guys. Let me
currently talking
speak.
about is the
You guys have
proposition
been
that this
you guys have
graph
been
is
running
just showing the
terrain for a
previous
while
19
now.
years of northern hemisphere
This is
sea ice area,
disgusting, and I
and
knew
from
you
what
would
we
do
can
this,
see is that it's
Brent.
fairly stable over this period. So what
Can
I was
I
interested in
talk?
is like any kind of reason to think that
Is there
chart
can
showed
a
that
moderator let
claim.
me talk here? Can a moderator let me talk here?
All right, I'm gonna step out because like if there's if look if I take it to be like if there's no debate like if there's
There's
no
a
debate.
debate. There's a debate proposition. Yeah, the
Okay,
debate proposition I just spelled it out for you. It's that this chart supports the claim that sea ice extent
Listen,
has been stable over the past 19 years.
are you guys
okay.
gonna let me speak?
And do we think? Oh, I'm happy to let you speak. I just want to
Okay, then
understand something. Like, do we think that the max? Wait, is there a reason to think that the maximums are a better predictor of the truth value of the debate proposition than the average? That's my question. It's a very clear question.
yeah, it's very clear because one of the claims of climate
Wait,
change
let's
or
start off with the answer. Let's start
just
off with the answer to the
Avi,
question.
just try to stop interrupting
Yes or
every
no?
5
No, it's
seconds,
yes or
please.
no. No, I don't appreciate when my time is
Um,
wasted instead of
You're
answering the fuck.
wasting my time, Avi. Now just let me
Okay, I'm
talk,
happy to
please.
leave. Look, I don't really look if this. It's
You
like
can
if
be
we're not
quiet,
gonna,
but
look, if
you
you're not going to answer questions, then I'm happy to leave. Like my
no, you
question is very simple. It's a
I'm
you
trying to
just started
speak and
saying
you're interrupting every 4
okay, just
seconds,
as a
man.
point of process, if you're gonna like, if you're interested in interacting with me, like when I ask a question, that's a clear yes or no or I don't know. Start off with yes, no, or I don't know, and then do the ramble. Don't start off with the ramble and then like some maybe yes or maybe no to get to the actual answer. So my question was very simple. Do we have good reason on the net to think that the maximums on the graph are a better predictor of the truth value of the proposition than the averages? And if so, what the fuck is that? So we can
Um,
start with a yes, no, or I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay. So why the
No,
fuck are we doing the maximums?
because it still communicates an important point.
Okay, I'm out. Bye.
So the important point that it communicates is that this is the northern hemisphere sea ice extent, and if every year it's returning to essentially the same point, which even from your data, Bryn, which I didn't check, if it's returning to that same point every year, then this goes against climate change. One of the main theories of climate change, which is that there is going to be declining Arctic sea ice um, amounts. Are you willing to admit that, Bryn?
Okay, so I've done the analysis on the maximum, and the maximum also has a negative trend. So if we take the peak of each year, we actually still get a negative trend.
Um, so do it from 2006 to current.
Okay. It became even more negative.
Okay, so from this, I mean, I don't really think this is the win you think it is.
Okay, so just to be clear to the room, the proposition in contention is that there has been a 19-year steady state in Arctic sea ice extent. That was supported using MAISY data, which I showed is disclaimed by NASA as being irrelevant to the proposition because it's not applicable to long-term data analysis.
Why
So
why is it not applicable, Bryn?
yeah, because the way that they do the measurements involves certain kinds of instruments that have a lot of variability from day to day. So it's really useful for doing day to day comparisons. So you can say like a volcano or something erupts, or there's like a large solar eruption, or like something happens that's important with like Arctic sea currents or Arctic wind currents. What you can do is you can do comparisons from day to day. That's super useful. However, NASA themselves says don't use this for long-term data analysis. What they suggest is using sea ice extent indexes. And the sea ice index, when you look at it, actually has a negative trend. Furthermore, when you look at other data sets that are contemporaneously used, like the Japanese aeronautical data set, you also get a negative trend.
I mean,
Now,
it depends on the
now,
time
just to be
period.
clear, when we look at both of those data sets, we have a negative trend. The claim, rightfully, sort of like from the outset, was that it was just over this 19-year period. So what I did is I downloaded the sea ice index. I did the 19-year average, which is what the claim was at its bare. The 19-year average has a negative trend. Once that 19-year average negative trend was shown, the claim was backed off to something a little bit stronger, which is just that it was the maximums. So the point of the year where the most sea ice is in the Arctic. However, even when we look at the maximums, it's still a negative trend. Then,
So
once that claim was shown to be false, Squarepusher asked me to take 2005 out of the data set. But when we take 2005 out of the data set, the trend is even more negative.
I mean,
But Brent, did you only do the minimums? What if you only do like every other minimum?
I don't know. We can poll the room. Like
so
to the room, considering I can just link again to the original statements that brought suspicion.
okay. So Bryn, from the graphs that you provided,
So just to be clear to everyone, this is the message that I asked Squarepusher to come into VC for. So it's just this like first sentence at the beginning about that chart showing this. Given everything I've just explained and everything Squarepusher has said back, do you think Squarepusher has successfully supported the proposition that the chart that they originally posted is capable of showing that there has been a 19-year stable state in Arctic sea ice extent?
I mean, when you say stable, I mean even from the graph you posted, like, what do you think the difference here is? Like between like 14.9 and like 14.87? Like, what do you honestly think the difference is there? And I just eyeballed it. I just eyeballed it.
Yeah, I think the fact that like it's just eyeballing is like sort of the problem. Like, how about instead, like I have Excel open, we can just
Well,
do
it's
the
not a
analysis.
problem because the one of the
But to be clear, what that chart says is that it's just around 230,000 square kilometers of sea ice every year in decrease on average from the maximum.
but then you also have to agree that in the graph that you posted above, the it appears the 2024 sea ice extent is higher than the
Yeah, but
2020.
I already agree that there's year-to-year variability. I don't think that it has to be like a categorically downward trend. The claim is just that on the long run, there's a trend. If now you're shifting to the claim, is it the case that 2004 has a lower sea ice extent than 2003? No, I don't believe that.
I
I
mean,
think that
or 2006.
2004 is actually a relatively strong year for sea ice extent.
I mean, you can look at the your own data that you posted. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I agree that some years are higher than the previous. But the point is that if we start looking at what climate scientists are actually claiming, which is that the long run averages are trending in such and such ways, it shows exactly what we predicted, which is that the sea ice extent is decreasing over time.
no,
No matter whether we measure it as an average, a maximum. If you want me to go to the minimum, I'll do the minimum.
the fundamental um, basis of climate change is that increased atmospheric CO2 levels is going to cause global warming, which is
This red box
temperature.
doesn't mean anything. I
Yeah,
already did the analysis on
it
the
doesn't mean
maximums. I
it
did the
doesn't.
analysis on the maximums.
It means something, Bryn. Like, listen, what even you're
That's this
conceding.
chart here. This chart here shows that on average, the year over year change is 230,000 square kilometers of sea ice extent fewer. So every year
But
we're losing about 230,000 square kilometers of sea ice extent
I mean,
at the maximum.
that's just from the cherry pick time period you give. But
This isn't the cherry pick time. This is the time period you chose. You
I mean,
chose this time period.
like I said,
This was your time period. You asked for 2005 to 2024. I was the one who said that we should use a longer trend, that we should use the
well, yeah, of course you want to use a long.
industrial period. No, but like I'm happy to work in between 2005 and 2024. I did the analysis over those years for you. I downloaded the data set. I've linked what data set I'm using. You can double check all these numbers for yourself.
I don't really know why you're laughing when you're essentially proving my point, which is, I mean, if you guys don't realize this, the predictions made by climate scientists was always that there was going to be an ice-free Arctic. It was coming by 2013. It was coming by 2017.
Yeah,
What
I'm not standing by those claims. That's not the proposition in contention.
Oh,
The proposition in contention is that your graph showed a 19-year steady state period in sea ice extent. in the
Right.
Arctic. That graph doesn't show that.
Um, well, if you look at maximum extent, I believe it does. I mean,
Now we can
show
we can
from
get
from
into
your own
that
data.
we can get into the other
From
stuff
your own
later,
data.
but just to be clear, again, just polling the room, does anyone at this point believe that Squarepusher has shown that the graph is capable of demonstrating that sea ice extent has been steady state for 19 years?
I mean, from your own graph, if you look at
No,
the
from your graph, because
from
it's important that we bring it to
I mean,
your graph in particular, because you
I
were the one
posted
who
Maze,
used data set. Yeah, your
yeah,
data
from Maze,
set has multiple problems.
from Mazy, but even in the analysis you just posted, if you look at 2006, the top extent, if you look at that rectangle, it's about the same as last year. That means I could say the ice extent in the Arctic from last year's peak is the same as approximately
But
2006.
that's not the claim. The claim was that over the past 19 years, sea ice extent has been steady state. It wasn't sea ice extent has been stable from 2003 to 2024. It hasn't been from 2022 to
If
2023.
if
It
if
was
we were if we were going through like man-made climate change, especially with the exponentially increasing CO2 output that's been released from Asia, China, India specifically.
okay. Just to be clear, though, that's not the claim that's on the table right now. The claim that's
No,
on the table right now
climate
is that
change.
19 years of sea ice extent has been stable. To be
Well, yeah.
clear,
If
to
I
be
can
clear,
go from
to
if
be
I
clear,
can go
can you support that for 19 years that sea ice extent has been steady state?
I mean, well, that's a little bit of a vague statement, but from your own graph that
I'm just gonna copy what you wrote, and then you can once again try and support it. 1 second.
I mean, and first of all, I just eyeballed all that data, but basically the important part is the extent for like last year is basically the
Okay,
same
just
as
for Square
2006,
Pusher
and you're not
and the
debating that, right?
room, this is the claim that was made. Can you support this claim?
Fairly stable. Yeah, I would say fairly stable is accurate because even the trend you did give is like extremely minute. So when I say like fairly stable,
In what sense is it extremely minute?
I mean look at the. I didn't even like double check your data, but even from the data you posted, assuming it's 100% accurate, like look at that trend line.
Yeah, the trend line's negative.
It's like, what do you think the slope would be on that?
We have the slope. It's actually right in the it's right in the image. You can
So
read it out.
0.159.
Yeah, 159,000 square kilometers per year on average, which is within the error of these models.
But as Avi admitted earlier, there's like tons of variations of like climate cycles and other things that we can account for. So if
I
we're
agree,
talking,
which I agree, which is why when you look at the long-term data, you can get a better idea because you start going over multiple cycles.
but from the data that you posted, and I mean we're talking, it's
Also,
probably like
just to be clear,
1%.
Avi didn't admit it. Avi brought it up as a criticism of your
Right.
of your of your of your selection of the time series frame. Yeah,
No, I mean it.
like to be clear, it's a criticism of selecting 2005 to 2024. Like the point is that what most climate scientists are interested in is the long run because there are climate cycles. So if you take like 1980 to
Yeah,
2024,
that's cherry picking.
you see a clear trend.
Do you know what the coldest decade in the 20th century was? Yeah, it was the 70s. That was a relative
Okay, so
long
what?
period.
So
They were
what?
they
So
they were
what? So what is the actual time frame you want to use? Because currently
no. I'm just
the
saying
first one you suggested that we use, 2005 to 2024, doesn't bear out in the data. When
it
we use
does bear out. Even even if
multiple data sets, it doesn't bear out.
even if
They
I accept your like 1% decline, even if I accept that, that's probably within like realms of uncertainty. And if you put it up
It's not
again, if
it's not the R squared value is is pretty strong. I don't. It's not within the realm of uncertainty. Now,
I mean,
like
look at this.
you can suggest that the models themselves are uncertain to an extent that this would be too little change, but that would just be a claim that I'd be interested in you supporting. Yeah, I mean, there's millions of kilometers, right? Like we're talking about like 14.4 million on average, or like I guess nowadays it's like like usually around like 10 million miles on average or square kilometers on average of sea ice extent. So yeah, something like 230,000 kilometers decrease year over year is interesting.
Not really. If you look at the percentage, which again I'll point out using like a rectangle. If you look at the sea ice index
Like just
yearly
to
minimum, it's
like to
about
just to be clear, the decrease from like 1980, which is what we're interested in, it was an average of 12.4 down to
okay.
like an average this of last year of 10.6.
I mean,
So we're
I can see it from the beginning that like everyone will tell you that yeah, there is a decline from 1980 to about 2004. I mean, that's not even
and there's
disputed.
also a decline from the years that you picked, which is 2005
Uh,
to 2024.
I,
Like no,
I don't know.
it's on it's in multiple data sets. We did the
Well,
data analysis.
I mean, even the graph you provided originally that there's like an increase. Like I'll post it again. But you provided this graph at the start,
Yeah,
and
and then I did the analysis. That's what this image is instead of doing your red squiggly line, if we actually put the data into
but I'm
Excel, we get
but I'm saying
this.
the
This is the actual data analysis with the trend line.
but I'm saying that there is high and will you admit this? There is higher ice for the previous year compared to at the start of the graph, which is like 2006. There was higher Arctic sea ice. Will you admit that?
Yeah, but
Because I okay, you
that's
said yeah,
not
but
the original claim. The original
okay,
claim
but
is
but
that there's been a stable state of sea ice
so
extent in
you
the
just
Arctic.
admitted that last year's like Arctic ice extent was higher than
Yeah, and
2006.
there's been years
That's a
where we get
huge problem for climate change believers. Do you not understand? Do you not see the
sorry, we're
problem?
going can we go back to the original proposition, which is that there's been a steady state
No, my
of sea ice extent?
do you not see the problem with saying, yeah, the Arctic ice was higher last year than like 17 years ago. Like do you but climate change is
Sorry,
happening. Global warming's
I'm just
happening.
interested in support for this claim.
Global boiling's happening, but oh yeah, there's
Sorry,
more ice.
I'm just interested in support for this claim before we move on to other topics. Can you please clarify whether you have any data that is applicable to the subject that shows that there has been a 19-year steady state of sea ice extent?
Okay, so without me even digging into any data or like checking your data from the graph you posted. Oh, sorry, not that. You showed a slight trend line, correct?
Yeah,
Um,
importantly, a
I,
negative trend.
I said fairly stable. So if this like -1%, I'd say is within the realm of like fairly
Okay, so
stable.
and by fairly stable, you're willing to concede that you mean a statistically significant within the error of the measurement models negative trend in sea ice extent.
I don't think it's statistically significant. Like, does anyone in chat looking at this graph, does that look like statistically significant? Like, most people would say that's like almost pretty straight. Like,
You don't look look, the fact that you're saying would anyone just look at it and say it's statistically significant is the problem here. That's not how that's not how you evaluate this.
but
You don't look at something like that may or may not be statistically significant, and you don't just eyeball it and say, "Oh, it looks fairly like it's straight." So, like, like no, you run the numbers and do the test.
I think I've done a pretty good job.
No, you've made a complete fool of yourself this entire conversation, Square.
No, I would almost guarantee for 90% of the people in this room right now, when they came into the conversation, they would have not known that like the Arctic ice level was like higher
Square,
last year than 2006.
Square.
Wait,
They
wait,
would have probably
Avi,
told you
Avi,
it was
Avi.
like kind
He's
of
making a
massive.
different claim there. Like,
I know he is. I know he is. It's also a claim. I'm not sure it's even true, but like, no, like in terms of following the debate proposition, addressing what's on the table, like you've completely failed, and
I
you've
don't think
shown
I
like a
failed.
complete lack of understanding of basic statistics, basic empirics, like all the basic things that people have coming to a conversation like this would
My
already accept coming to the table.
my initial off the cuff claim was that it was fairly stable, and what Bryn was able to provide is like at most like a 1% like decline slope. I mean,
Okay, well, it depends on when you say fairly stable. It depends on what you mean when you say fairly stable. If by fairly stable that includes a statistically significant decrease, which it may be, like then fine. But That's just not going to be. That's just not going to carry the weight of supporting the debate proposition the way you want it to.
I mean, I wouldn't say like whatever this slope is statistically significant,
Or
especially given
I know
the
you wouldn't
claim.
say it, but that look, it's not that you wouldn't say it. It's that you're confident that it's not by looking at it is the problem.
I think just by common sense, from what we're
That's not how
told,
we do statistics. We don't just say by common
no,
sense.
but
No.
what we've been told by the media, by politicians, by even
All
scientists,
right.
mad
Are
climate
we,
climate
you,
scientists, is
can we talk
that
about chemtrails now? Are we going to talk about like?
no, they're telling us that we're gonna have melting ice caps and like
That's compatible with this being statistically significant. Look, let's say they were wrong about melting ice caps. Okay, fine. That's still compatible with you being wrong about this debate proposition.
I mean again, I
Yes?
just eyeball the
No?
graph. I could probably get a time period from around that same time, maybe a little different, where it's
Why
flat.
would you be doing that though? Why would you like? Yes, you probably could if you cherry picked enough and you like adjusted and you picked like yes. Eventually, at some point, you're gonna find something that has a slight positive slope. I'm sure you will. But what the fuck is that gonna show?
Well, it there's a very important part. Like, okay, so
Do you think it's gonna support the debate proposition
there's
being true?
I mean, my overall debate proposition was that, climate change is probably a scam. And yeah, I do think that
That was
supports
the
it.
debate proposition? I thought you were talking about a different debate proposition.
I mean, I just posted a graph originally, and then
Do you
when
think, because my question is, do you think that if you adjust the year and keep adjusting until you find a positive slope, that that's going to support the debate proposition you're speaking about now? Your side of that debate proposition.
um given the claims of global boiling and climate change and how this like
I'm not talking about the claims of global boiling. I don't know what global boiling is, but I'm not talking whatever it is. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the debate proposition you're talking about now. I don't know why I'm like, all right. My correction impulse is really a problem with me. I'm
that's
doing
fine.
it,
No, it's fine.
controlling this because controlling myself because this
No,
is like insane. Like, how are you not tracking what the debate proposition is? Like, why are you careening off into what climate scientists are saying?
I just think it's a little bit bigger picture that you guys are kind of nitpicking on something small.
We're trying to focus on what the debate proposition is.
I mean,
That's
I
what
mean,
it means to be in a debate.
I posted a Mazzy graph, and I said it was fairly stable, and
Does that support? Wait,
and
does your analysis support your side of the debate proposition?
I mean, s- so given what Brin's data analysis was,
Yeah. Yes, no. Start with the yes, no, or I don't know. Like,
so
there's a debate proposition on the table.
I mean, I would say like from what Brin posted, it's fairly stable. I'd say that's within the realm of fairly
This
stable.
is not answering my question. Do you
Does
think
it
you just
support
answered my question?
does it support the debate?
Does it support your side of the debate proposition? What
I mean,
anything you've done here?
I think yes.
How? What have you done that supported your side of the debate proposition?
I mean, I think if I can show, I mean, hold up. I mean, if you're looking to specifically what was said above, let me scroll up.
Wait, you don't know what the debate proposition is?
I mean, I posted. This is what I originally posted.
Wait, I thought you guys were both clear on what the debate proposition you both were disagreeing on. Were you like having this conversation the whole time not knowing what the debate proposition was?
I mean, we're essentially having a climate change debate where I'm on the side of
No, this is
it's over.
this is totally dishonest. From the outset, I said, "Here's the message that I'm interested in." In fact, I responded to that message saying VC. When we got in, I said, "Let's start with this first claim," and I asked you to support that claim, and then you gave a support of that claim, and then I hopped into my issues with it.
Right. So
The claim that's been in contention has always been this first sentence. And for further evidence of that, when you try to defend yourself, sometimes you bring up that what you really meant by slightly stable is like some notion that fits in with the graph. So you know that that's the proposition on the table. Now, if you weren't under the impression that's the proposition on the table, that's the proposition that's on the table. Like we're talking about that message. That's why I asked you to VC. We can get into the other claims later, but that's the claim that's on the table. You posted this graph. I asked you, what does this graph show? Then
and
you
I said
responded, and that
it
first
showed
sentence,
fairly stable, right?
that
Fairly
first,
stable.
right. So that's the proposition that's on the table, is that
And
that graph is showing that it has been fairly stable.
I still stand by that. Like you produced like a 1% like slope, which I'm saying that's fairly stable. Yeah. You've
Wait,
shown
a
like
1% negative slope is compatible with is that compatible with supporting your side of the debate proposition?
I mean there's
Do you
some
think
years.
that makes your side of the debate proposition that you're discussing right now more likely true than false, or more likely on your side than his side? Whatever whatever value you both disagree on. Because if so, it doesn't. You're cashing out the term fairly stable in such a way that it's not going to support your side of the debate proposition.
My side of the debate proposition is basically there's not like catastrophic melting in the Arctic.
Wait, that's not what I remember. What? Okay, hold on. Let's just write out the debate. Bryn, write the debate proposition. Like, what is the debate
I've
proposition?
written it out multiple times, and I've clarified it in VC multiple times. The debate proposition in hand is that the graph that was posted demonstrates that there's been a 19-year period where the CIS extent has been fairly stable. That's the proposition. Like, and if that wasn't if somehow that wasn't clearly the proposition, even though as soon as we got in VC, I said, "Here's what we're talking about. Defend it. Can you give the defense?" And people that were here, like Isaiah, Bad Nose, etc., can beyond can all mention that that was exactly how the debate started. Then let's just shift to it now.
And by
Now let's.
fairly stable, we got to make sure by fairly stable you both have the same understanding. Like, presumably by fairly stable, we're not talking about something that's going to eventually, at some point, lead to no ice left, even if that's like 100 years, 200 years, or whatever. Like, we're not
Right.
talking about a statistically significant negative trend or something, even if it's 1%, 1%, year by year or something.
There is a statistically significant decline in ice from 1980 to
We not
2004.
That's not what we're not. The debate proposition was in 1980. Why are you doing this?
Well, I'm just admitting like what is
I
like
know you're admitting it, but that's not the debate proposition. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure you both have the same view of the debate proposition. Okay, because look, I want to make sure you're on the same page on what you're fucking debating. Now, the one thing I spotted was that fairly stable was in the debate proposition. So I want to make sure you both have the same understanding of what fairly stable means, so you can both don't talk past each other. Now, presumably, you would have an understanding of fairly stable, meaning that in such a way where you get the, like 100 years from now, 200 years from now, there's basically more or less the same amount of sea ice. It's not a 1% decline year by year or something like that.
um
And if you do, and by the way, if you do have an understanding of fairly stable where there is a decline like that, where you don't get any ice left at some point, like then you and Bryn might not have a dispute on the debate proposition.
I don't think we're really going that far into the future here.
Wait, do you both wait? No, this is a term in the debate proposition that it's not clear that you both have the same understanding of. What do you mean by fairly stable?
I'm I mean what I meant was like, for example, that last year's sea ice extent was higher than 19 years ago.
So
Meaning,
fairly stable means
Yeah, I don't have the recording, but my recollection from the beginning and why I hopped into it was that stable was meant to be taken as like the same, like there is no change. That was the wording that I had originally. Now, if that's an incorrect reading that I got from the beginning, that's my bad.
I mean,
But yeah, like your view is that fairly stable is just that last year was higher than the beginning of the trend line?
well, I mean that's one part of it.
oh my god, I'm gonna fucking kill myself. I'm gonna
Because that's not what you said at the beginning, right? At the beginning, you said that it's been the same or in there and about. Now, it's my bad for not just writing it down from the outset.
I mean, yeah, and
All right, bro.
the data still demonstrates that.
I
Okay,
think
so
Bryn,
just clarify what you mean by stable. Like, just give us something Just give us something that makes the sentence still propositional that we can actually like assess with data.
Like trend line close to horizontal.
Close to means
oh my god. Close to means in the vicinity
I mean,
somewhere.
I mean, within this 19-year time period, like either one of us could cherry pick. I could cherry pick a increased trend if I wanted.
No, I want a definition of close to. What is the definition of close to that we can actually validate with data?
I mean,
Like something that has a determinate result. So like if I say, like 9 is close to 10, and then you ask me what does close to mean, and I say like within 3 integers. Then we can determine that. We can see whether we can take like 3 subtractions or 3 additions away from 10 and see if we get 9. What I'm interested in is what you mean by close to.
I mean, something that looks like relatively flat.
What do you mean by looks like, and what do you mean by relatively?
Eyeball
Like,
it, it's what I think.
I mean, for example,
Okay, is the example going to be an extensive definition, or can you just provide the definition?
I mean, even the trend you showed was very, very slight, and by adjusting
Very, very and slight means what here?
very slight, like meaning like maybe 1 or 2%, and even and like I
Okay, so
said,
sorry.
one of us,
Does close to mean 1 to 2%?
it could, yeah,
No,
and
it
all
could
and
not. It could,
and
yeah. I
also,
just want a definition. Like, just sign off on a definition so we can
I mean,
do
and
data analysis
also,
while you and Avi talk to each other or something.
listen,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
just
want to
want
do.
something that like I could actually talk to.
I think you
That I
guys
could
are
actually go.
focusing. I think you guys are missing the big picture here. So the for climate change, the claims for climate change is that like the northern hemisphere was going to have like catastrophic melting, and
No,
we're
no, no.
like,
We're not talking about a
and we're
different.
here
We're not
just,
talking about a different
and I
proposition.
was able to
Look,
no that we're
the
talking about
proposition,
climate change,
the
the
proposition
original.
that's no, the original, and again, like people that are in the room, like Beyond and Isaiah and others that were here from the outset can like back me up on this. That from the outset, I said, let's talk about this particular first sentence in your message, the one that I responded to you saying VC. That one, we're talking about that one. And when I said you, when I said let's talk about that, you gave a defense of it. Then I responded, so
Right.
we were
So
doing a debate on that proposition. So what I'm interested in is that proposition. Like
you're also
focus on that
ignoring
proposition.
you're also ignoring a ton of my proposition, by the
Yeah,
way,
because
conveniently.
we haven't finished with the first one. We're
I
not
mean,
switching to a
listen,
different
we're
proposition.
not gonna
We're not just
we
gonna
don't want to
ramble
spend
around.
we're not gonna spend freaking like 10 years on this. So
He's right.
everyone knows
I'm happy to spend 10 years on it actually.
everyone knows
like
is
we're gonna stick on this proposition until there's like a clear agreement between the two of us or bedrock
I
on
mean,
like on
so
some like normative
so
principle
you
or
Bro,
something.
this is just sophistry. This is sophistry. He's trying to get clarity about what you mean so he could figure out if there's a disagreement, and you're avoiding giving him clarity.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
Avi,
just want to understand what you mean by the proposition, because I thought I understood from the outset that what you meant was same
I
and
can
about. That
I,
was my bad for
listen,
hearing it the way or making that assumption.
I can
But I'm
I can
interested in what
if
you actually mean by the proposition. So just
if
define the terms. What do you mean by fairly stable?
it means, okay, so it means that if I wanted to, I could fiddle around in my spreadsheet and create a trend increase for a relatively similar time period. Meaning in
So can you just write that out 1 second? Like what?
and also what you guys are not really understanding is that the basic claim of climate change is that increased CO2 levels will
No, no, no,
cause
don't
global
move to
warming.
don't
You
move
don't
to a
like
different
that, do you?
don't move to a different
What?
proposition.
Because you know
Don't move to a
because you
different proposition.
know
I'm just
it
interested in
hurts
this
you.
proposition right now.
You know it hurts you.
I'm
Just
just
for the
interested in
fact that we're debating, like,
I'm just
yeah,
interested in this proposition. Can you clarify what you mean by fairly
I
stable?
got you to admit that like last year's CS extent was higher than 2006. Now imagine telling the average person who believes in climate change, "Hey, did you know the Arctic had more ice last
So
year than like
can you just
18
clarify
years ago?"
what you meant by the proposition? The original proposition was that over the past 19 years, CS extent in the Arctic has been fairly stable, and that your graph supports that. So we just want to get clarification on what you mean by fairly stable.
I think I already said it. It means that the trend is close to zero, and potentially I could create a positive trend if I like adjust the time period a little bit. Like I could have a slight increase if I wanted to, but I don't even need to because
Okay,
as long as I
so two things. One, I'm just gonna quickly poll the room. When you hear the word fairly stable, do you think that the sentence that I just wrote in chat is what people assume is meant by fairly stable? And then while people are answering, can you clarify what you mean by close to?
I mean, I think we already went this. So you produce a slight declining trend. I think it would also be
I
possible
just
to
I just want
create.
a definition of close to. Just give me a definition of close to. One that we could actually verify with data.
Yeah, go with ask yourself.
He's mocking you when he says that. That's like the
I mean,
point.
I
The
don't.
point is, look, the
What's
reason
the
why it's
what's the
important,
joke?
the reason why it's important to do this is because we want a definition or some sort of concept that can be tested statistically by the data set. We
Okay,
don't
that's fair.
want something that we're like, oh, we run this regression or we run this test, and then we're not sure if that's compatible or incompatible with what you're saying because we don't know what close to means. Because does this number, does that come out to be, does this p-value come out to be something that challenges the view that it's relatively stable, relatively flat? Like, we don't know because that's not telling us anything. Like, it's not giving us like it's not it's not like a Cohen's d, a measurement of like if you're not saying like, oh, a Cohen's d of like 0.2 or something like that, or like a percentage change year like of this, or like a metric of statistical significance like a p-value of 0.05. Like, you're not giving us anything to work with.
Um, I don't have any like spreadsheets or I'm not doing any graphing, but I mean
Well,
the answer.
just give us what your definition is. It doesn't matter that you have it in front of it. Like, just give us your definition.
I mean, I mean, I've said it multiple times. I mean, something that's close to relatively flat. If I wanted to like go in there in my spreadsheet, I could create a upward trend for some like time period. It's so close to zero that I mean that would be possible for either of us to do right now by adjusting the time period. But I think you guys are like over focusing on this.
I'm not over focusing. I'm just interested in what you mean by the proposition. And you had this potentially could create a positive trend if I adjusted the time period. I think that one might just be like near trivial. But the close to stable, relatively flat, that's the part that we're interested in right now. That's what we were asking about. What do you mean by those kinds of words?
So if you look at that freaking awesome
No, no,
graph
no. I just
showing
want a
how,
definition of like close to stable, relatively flat.
I mean, so like roughly 50% of the entries would be higher, roughly 50% would be lower, something like that.
Okay, so 1 second.
Cool graph summary, by the way, I like that.
This is what you mean by fairly stable?
I mean, I kind of feel like we're getting into just some point of like nitpicking or arguing semantics.
Yeah, we are. Semantics arguing is important. That's like the entire like premise of this server is to like actually figure out what the semantics of what people are saying are and then discuss them using data.
Right, but you don't want me to go into like other areas where
Not
where we
until we
could.
have clarification on the issue. No.
Well, I mean, so the main issue is one of the basic claims that climate change theorists make
No, 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 no,
is
no, no.
that there's
Just clarify whether
so
this is the proposition that
you
you're
understand that this weakens your argument and you don't want me to go there. But I think most people in the room
just
understand what the claims are that like climate
okay.
change,
Just pull in the
quote
room.
unquote scientists are making.
One, if you understand what the claim is. Two, if you don't understand what the
You're
claim
trying to
is.
control the data in your favor, trying to control the discussion to be in your favor.
Well, minor profit understands it.
I think I've already accomplished a lot of wins here because I think hopefully everyone in the room now understands that like the CIs from last year was higher than 2006, and there's been like many
Just to be
years
clear,
where
though,
it's higher.
that wasn't the claim. The claim is that there's been a 19-year steady state. You wrote it as
Fairly,
fairly stable, but we just need to understand what fairly stable means.
meaning that I mean we can return to like the peak extent of 2006, and we're still getting the same peaks. So that's one way to describe it. But the important thing to notice though is that from 1980 to around 2004, there was a significant decline in Arctic sea ice, which no one really disputes that. That's very well documented.
Okay, this is what you mean by fairly stable? That the peak of 2006
This is,
is possible afterwards?
we're getting into like waste of my time territory, but what's
I
interesting
just
is
want to
that,
understand what the proposition is.
I mean,
So just to be clear,
you've
by
done this like
fairly stable,
20,
you mean that the
you've done this
peak?
like 20 times. It's like it's
Because
getting boring.
you haven't given an answer.
But like, so the
We just want an understanding of fairly stable that can be analyzed with data.
I've given you
Because
like
so
five. Take any of them.
take any
But
of them. But
the
if I
core
take,
the core
if,
claim of climate change is that like increasing CO2 levels is causing global warming. Agree or disagree?
I just want clarification on this proposition.
Okay, so think I think you know this is going to hurt you and you want to avoid it.
I just want to understand what the proposition is.
So in the past like 20 years, we've had like exponentially
Sorry, that's not the
increasing
proposition.
carbon
The proposition
emissions,
that's on the table
and
is that
despite that,
no,
despite the
that's not the proposition. Can you
despite
just
the
clarify what you
exponentially
mean by the
increasing
proposition?
CO2 levels, the Arctic ice extent
Squarepusher.
was higher last year than it was in
Just clarify
2006.
the proposition.
That means we had more ice last year than in 2006, despite all this extra carbon. I think that's a significant point. Can you address that?
Can you clarify the proposition at hand?
I mean, I think if the room just takes home that, I think I've been successful. That yeah, we have significantly more CO2 in the atmosphere, and we're still having like ice peaks
This
that
is the
are like
proposition that's on the
higher than.
table. Can you just clarify what you mean by fairly stable?
So the Arctic is not melting, despite what the media tells you. Everyone, thank God for that.
Can you just clarify what you mean by fairly stable in this proposition?
Take one of the previous 7 definitions I've given.
Which one would you like to use?
Any of them is fine.
Such as?
Such as the one where I could create a positive trend.
So by fairly stable, you mean that you can create a positive trend.
You could create a positive or negative trend depending on like how you like cut like part of the data. It could go either way, yeah. I mean, I think most
Okay, so
people understand that.
that message that's in the chat from me most recently, that's what your proposition is?
This is getting boring, honestly.
That's your proposition in the chat?
Dude, it's a yes or no.
Maybe. I mean, I'm glad people are having a good time, but I think I've actually accomplished one of my main goals, which was to educate people about the Arctic ice levels. So I think the average person, based on what
Can
the
you just
media
clarify
tells
whether
them,
this is your proposition or not?
the average person, based on what the
Hello?
media is telling
Can you just
them,
clarify whether this is your proposition or not?
running out of patience, but
That's fine, but can you just clarify whether this is your proposition or not?
and for the record, Bryn is also avoiding a huge portion of the debate because he
Can
realizes
you just
that
clarify whether this is
it
your
goes
proposition or
against
not?
it goes against like his favor of.
Can you just clarify whether this is your proposition or not?
Sure, that's fine.
That's your proposition, okay.
But I really don't understand what you're doing.
I just want it to be clear whether or not that's what you are defending.
Yeah, I'd say that's consistent with saying like fairly stable. Yeah. I mean, and I don't understand why it's taking you 20 minutes to understand that. Because I think you're purposely being bad faith at this point.
And what you mean
Well,
by possible to create a positive negative trend is just that if we select some time frame within that data set, we can create a positive or negative trend. So like if I selected like
no,
2000 and 2000
not
and like
any
20
train. I would say it would have to be using most of the data. No, I don't want you to just cut
What do
like
you mean by most?
uh like over 90% of that time period. So I don't. I mean, you could obviously cut like 2 days and create a trend from that. That's like ridiculous though. But I'm talking like using like the vast majority. And yes, from the beginning, I just eyeballed and I haven't done any databasing or anything like that. I just came in to
Okay,
talk to you.
so we have to use at least 17.1 out of the past 19 years.
Sure. So I
Okay.
could create a
So
positive or a negative trend.
so can you demonstrate that that's the case?
I could, but I think you could also do that.
I'm not going to do the ablation study. Can you show that it's possible to create a 17.1 year period using this data?
I'm not going to do it because it'd be a waste of time.
But that's your claim.
Well, I think I've already proven my claim that
No, you haven't. Your claim is that if we if we take this data, it's possible to create a positive or negative trend over 90% of the data set. 90% of the data set is 17.1
I mean,
years. So you need to show a 17.1 year period
I
in
went
2005 to 2024 where there's a positive trend.
I went into this debate literally with one screenshot that I posted yesterday, and besides that, I've used all of your data, which means I'm not doing any data digging or anything. Could I create that trend? Yeah, I'm almost positive I could. Am I gonna? No, I'm not
But
going to.
that's your claim.
But I think like, I mean, I've already proven I think the important parts of what I wanted to prove here.
You haven't proven anything.
Yeah, I got you to admit that the Arctic ice levels for last year were higher than 2006, which the data clearly shows, and I think that's important that
The
people understand that.
the only propositions on the table is whether or not there's been a fairly stable sea ice extent in the Arctic. And
So
by fairly stable, you meant that it's possible to create a positive or negative trend using
you're
90% of the data set.
you're missing the bigger picture, though. I've already scored a victory. If the climate alarmists are claiming there's like a runaway melting or like catastrophic situation going on with the ice caps, and I just proved that like no, that's actually not happening.
The only claim that's on the table is this proposition. And I'm interested in support for that proposition.
My original claim was simply that it's questionable to believe in climate change in 2024. If you look at my original reply, I said,
No,
imagine believing in climate change.
I asked you what does the graph show, and that was the first sentence. So we're just going point by point. The first point is that graph shows. Now there's two problems, which is that data set is not applicable to that kind of analysis. And then it also doesn't show it because if we compare it to other data sets which are applicable for this kind of analysis, we don't get that result. We get the opposite result, which is that there has
So,
been a decrease. Now,
Brent,
granted, we've come around to the fact that what fairly stable didn't mean is that there's been no change. What we meant by it is actually that it's possible to create a positive or negative trend using a 17.1 year period during this time
yeah,
period. So
and I agree.
what I'm interested in is what is that time period?
So if I could produce that for you and show a positive trend, what will you concede or what will you admit?
What I'll admit is that that proposition has been demonstrated, and then we can move on to something else.
Okay, well, since you took all your time to do the graphs, I will do that for you. I won't do it now, but I will later today. I'll find that for you. And actually, if you can share, if you already have a spreadsheet, if you can share that, I can use that same data and I can produce that for you.
The
If you wanted to,
the
I believe you could produce it.
the images have the link, but also it's
I mean, I can find the data,
this is the data that's being
but
used.
I'll use like your data that you want me to use.
Yeah, that's the CIS index right there.
Okay, I'll bookmark that and I'll produce a trend for you with to show a slight
Over a
trend.
17.1 year period between 2005 and 2024.
So can we assume at this point that I can and will do that and move on, or do you
No,
not
do
want
it.
you?
Like
Okay,
I want it I want it
okay.
demonstrated.
So when I have free time later, I'll do that. But I guess if you're not willing to discuss anything else, then I think we're done, right?
Okay.
If anyone else wants to ask me any questions or talk to me, I'm willing to talk. And just to clarify, I did admit there was a sea ice, Arctic sea ice decline from 1979 to approximately 2004. I admit that there's a very clear decline, but I was only saying that since then it's relatively stable, which we haven't really decided on a meaning of that, right? I'm sure this room is filled with people who think I'm crazy, so why don't someone just ask a question? I'll be happy to engage.
Oh, and just to clarify, because I think this is ambiguous in the proposition. Are you going to be using the average or the maximum extent?
What would you prefer me to use?
I mean, it's up to you. You're the one who made the claim. What was the original graph that you used? I think it was average,
I mean,
right?
from my point of view, as long as I can show there's not a dramatic decrease, I believe I've won. Because the reason for that is the climate narrative is sold as a dramatic melting of ice caps that's catastrophic.
Yeah, you okay. Yeah, you used average. So what we want is that the previous 19 years in Northern sea ice area.
I mean, you guys laugh at dramatic, but when you have like people like Greta Thunberg like come on
Okay, there you go. So
TV,
there's what we want is you have to at least use 17.1 years of data.
oh, by the way, I have some good news. Greta's taken a hiatus from climate change
At
shilling
least 17.1 years of data.
to shill for Palestine now. So she's taking a
And
little break on that.
once you've done that, it should show that there's a positive trend. We've already shown the negative trend, so we just need to show the positive trend.
And I'm gonna try to get that for you today, Brent.
Thanks.
But since I think me and you don't have anywhere else to go, I would be happy to talk to anyone else in good faith discussion. If not, I think we're done.
Show me your beautiful face.
I mean, I have sort of a philosophical question if you're interested.
Yeah, I am interested.
Why are you retarded?
Yeah, I almost unmuted to say, "Why are you crazy?"
I mean, what do you think is crazy about what I'm saying? It's like a graph of data. Honestly, I think climate change for most people is almost a religion. So when you do come out talking against it, they get like extreme, like you've attacked their core belief. And people do usually react pretty badly, which I was expecting. But I'm just looking at data.
Yeah, clearly.
And also, I know we didn't bring this up, but the Antarctic ice
Look,
area.
you said that we were going to put the debate on pause. Like, chill on the claims. Go, like, if you're spending time in VC, you have time to just go do the data analysis.
Yeah,
respectfully, fuck off. Like, go do the data analysis.
Well,
Don't sit in here talking about climate change.
Well, I can talk to
claims.
other people.
No, you can't. That's not how this works. If you're making claims,
Yeah, I can.
You gotta stick to the. Okay,
Bryn, you're
that's
too
not
desperate.
That's not how this server
You're too
works.
desperate to control the narrative. Like even through the entire thing, like you wouldn't let me talk about.
I sat here and did the data analysis live. You can sit here and do the data analysis live quietly, but what's not okay is just to sit here making further claims about the debate before you've even clarified whether this first proposition is true.
I can talk to other people about other things. That's fine.
No, this is just debate dodging. Like, go do the data analysis.
I'm not gonna. I have no obligation to dig out a freaking data. I will do that for you out of courtesy, but I have no obligation to do that. To like graph some spreadsheet for you. Do you think I have an obligation to do that? I think you're trying to control the narrative in your favor, because a lot of the other points.
Have you finished the data analysis or no?
A lot of the other points that I brought up.
Sorry, have you finished the data analysis or no?
Read server rules. Yeah, sorry, I did read the server rules. Does anyone else want to talk?
Have you finished the data analysis or no?
Okay, I think we're done then. If you won't let me speak to anyone else.
Yeah, go do the data analysis.
And then once I do,
then we can continue. Yes, as long as just go do the data analysis.
Okay, well, it was nice chatting with you.
Likewise, go do the data.